And I have to find my notes for our class. Where did I put it? Here. There it is. All right. Okay, getting my tea.
There's only one person in the waiting room, so I might send out an email to everyone who's registered and be like, starting now.
Yeah. Fabulous. Damn it. Damn it. I want to put my jewelry on as well.
Okay, so more people are showing up now. That makes me feel better. I'll still send it though.
Tea, jewelry. Those are the important things. I got my eyelashes done today for the first time.
Oh, really? How was it?
We'll see. I want to see if I can actually see it on the video.
Yeah. Was it painful at all or no?
It was a bit uncomfortable. It was a little uncomfortable, but more because the ladies who did it couldn't speak English. And
So you can't really like communicate to them what's wrong.
I was like, so what's going to happen? And they're like, here, boom.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that she understood that I just wanted to know what was going to happen to me. But I said a couple of times, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
But tea. Where is it? Here we go. Oh, we have some water as well. That's good. I was going to make a little slide, and then I was like, well.
Yeah.
I fell asleep instead. I can't believe how much I'm sleeping.
Yeah. That is, I mean, your body must need it. So it's good, right?
Yeah, it just must. Because usually if I get to have a nap ever, that's it for like the next few weeks. But
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to let people in.
Okay. Also, just I know it sounds like you have a paper and it just rustles against your speaker. Yeah, it just is like deafening loud through the other end.
I'm sorry.
Just always scares me for a moment.
I know. It's just the one paper. All right, here we go. I'm letting people in. Hello, everybody. Hi there. My name is Joanne Butcher. Nice to meet you all. Oh, Chris, hello. How are you doing? Peter, nice to see you. And then some faces I don't know. So wonderful. Welcome to my class on distribution. I have to say that it's very impressive that you all have shown up for this class, because mostly when I speak to filmmakers, they don't really understand the importance of distribution. So, you know, you already kind of crossed a couple of hurdles because so many filmmakers, distribution is not on their radar at all, not at all. So, well done for at least wanting to know something about distribution, and we'll be here for about an hour and a half. And by the end of the hour and a half, I hope that you can walk away with some understanding about distribution and how valuable it is for you as a filmmaker. And we'll get there. A lot of filmmakers, I think, are thinking about other goals for their films, and so I'd like to start with kind of looking at, you know, what are your goals for your films, and we'll get there. But just to start, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Joanne Butcher. I am a business coach, and I work with filmmakers on all the business aspects of filmmaking. So raising money, marketing, distribution, obviously, sales, anything that's to do with business and money. And often, you know, actually today I was talking to a filmmaker in England, and she was saying, well, you know, I just don't really feel comfortable with anything about numbers, and I don't feel comfortable with math. And I said, well, okay, first of all, I suck at math, so it's not that I'm good at math or something like that, because I really am not. I always have to choose very easy numbers, you know, let's talk about 10,000, let's talk about 100,000, you know. I'm definitely not a math person, but what I do think that filmmakers can become comfortable with is just thinking in terms of the concept of making money with their films, because most filmmakers, that is not what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about actually making money. So that's partly why I like to have filmmakers think about distribution and start there. Okay, so my little introduction. I call myself a business coach. I don't call myself anymore a producer. I teach my clients how to produce their own films. I teach my clients how to be able to raise money. I teach my clients how to actually work towards getting distribution for their films. And that's the role that I play. So I'm a coach, I teach, I educate, I help my clients in whatever ways I can with their films. And to my core, I'm a fundraiser, and to my core, I'm a producer. And so I'm passing on those skills as much as I can to filmmakers. I'm just getting over COVID, by the way, so I tested negative on Saturday, but I'm still not myself. So if I kind of go off the rails, you know, you can bring me back in. But I'm going to try and keep my focus as much as possible. So also, by the end of this class, I would like to have you all have the opportunity to meet each other, and to ideally, you know, build your network of filmmakers. Filmmakers don't like the but they do like the word collaboration, because all filmmakers like to collaborate, and you're all good at that. So I'd like you to meet each other and meet some other filmmakers around the country or the world. We'll see if anyone's from out of the country. So I would like you to just take a couple of minutes before we really get started, and just write down, what are your goals for the film that you're working on now, or the film that you plan on making? what are your goals for the film? And there could be any number of goals that you have, you know. It could be about getting the film seen. It could be just about getting it made. It could be how much money you want to raise to make it. It might be about the quality of the people that you're collaborating with. It could be any number of things. But let's just take, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write down your goals. Okay, 2 minutes. All right. So I think I'm going to start out by getting a few of you to let us know what are your goals for your film, for the next film that you're working on. Anybody raise their hand, can speak. Otherwise, oh, Ed, yes, and then Brandon. All right. Go ahead, Ed. And I hope, are you driving, Ed? Because
I'm riding as a passenger.
oh, okay. All right. Okay.
I didn't want to miss this class, but we're
Okay.
headed out to dinner. And anyway, thank you for calling on me. Ed Cohen. I'm based in North Haven, Connecticut, and really new to the film business. Over the last year, started out with 2 full feature films, and one with Antonio Banderas, the other one with Olga Kurylenko and Don Johnson.
Wow.
And just ended up in there because I was trying to get my composer, Max DiCarlo, the score for the first movie.
Oh, now I know who you are. Yes, yes.
And so, they ended up saying, oh, we love the music and we want to talk to the director, but it won't happen until post-production. So meanwhile, you want to work on a movie. Of course. So I got the bug and ended up location scouting on the first one. And then they thought I did a great job on that. And so they brought me in on the second movie. And I ended up as location scout, then location manager. And when all was said and done, we got Max the score, and I ended up getting a second credit as associate producer, which blew my mind. I said, what's that for? He said, well, you did so much beyond the scope of your regular position that we had to give you something, and that was the closest we could come. So it's like, okay, great. So now I've got the absolute bug, and my goal has always been to introduce Max to new and upcoming directors and producers. I've been working with Yale Productions out of Long Island, New York, and that's been a terrific relationship. So that's pretty much where I'm at on my film business.
Your goal is to introduce a composer to film directors.
Correct.
Okay, fabulous. That's very unusual. Okay, Brandon, what's your goal for your next film?
Much like Ed, I'm getting into this late in life.
Never too late.
I would started off as an actor, and I fell into producing because I have a business background. And my first movie, can I plug it?
Of course.
It comes out tomorrow.
Oh.
Yay.
It's called Turbo Cola, like a soft drink.
Ah, now I know who you are.
On Clubhouse, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Turbo Cola, that's right. So when you say it's coming out, what does that mean?
It means it's available on all digital platforms wherever you rent a movie. And then in the fall, we're going to be in 300 to 500 independent theaters across the country. So we did ours backwards. We're doing our theater run after our digital run.
That's really unusual.
Yeah, just the way it worked out. Our distributor did not include a theater run in my distribution list, in my distribution deal.
Uh-huh.
So anything that happened in the theaters, I had to do myself.
Right. Okay.
So I got with a theater distributor, and right now nothing's in stone yet, but we've signed a letter of intent.
Right. That's fantastic.
So being that I have a movie that's coming out tomorrow, I'm already looking around for my next project. And the reason why I'm here in this class is because the way I did it the first time might not be the way I do it the second time. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, yes, it does, because
I didn't know what I didn't know, and I made a lot of mistakes.
Yes.
So my first goal is to take a step up in budget from what we did. The next one, because we were filming during COVID, December of 2020, there was no named talent that was really allowed to work at that time. So we weren't able to get named talent. I would like, because the budget is increasing, I would like to work with named talent next time.
That's a great.
And, just be able to, my third one is be able to maintain a living to where I don't have to get a real job. I'm a retired Marine, so I do have a monthly income coming in that is nice. But, when times get tough, I'll go drive Uber or something, and, just want to be able to maintain and make a living at it.
Those are some great goals. Wonderful. Who else? Alina. What are your goals?
Oh, well, I am producing, directing a documentary on breast cancer, and I've been the last 3 years curating a show that goes from gallery to gallery. So what I wanted to do, or what I have been doing, is documenting the exhibits and also interviewing the artists. But I don't know enough about distribution. I just like need more guidance in terms of finding funding, like through grants or other forms. And I really don't know that much about distribution itself. I mean, I want to enter into film festivals and send them off to like a local television here in local public television here in Miami.
Oh, you're in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Hollywood.
Oh, so you're very close.
Alina, when you said you're taking a show from gallery to gallery, so are these artists who are breast cancer survivors, or what's the connection with the artists?
Well, they're either a few are patients, survivors like such as myself, and one lady who passed away about 3 years ago, so she's the honoree, and supporters meaning caregivers.
Okay.
So this is the third year now. Obviously, last 2 years it was virtual, but so this in October of this year we're going to shoot the exhibit, but the exhibit now is part of a event. So it's an open night reception, and it's in a public library nearby. There's going to be like a mammogram truck outside, medical panels, testimonials, music, poetry, speeches. Some survivors have been invited to, some prominent people. So it's more an event, because last year they were small events, small receptions. So anyway, I kind of need guidance in terms of, I don't even know that much about distribution. I read a little bit up on the theatrical release, but I think with mine, it's to show to like women's groups, universities, and I'm in touch with a lot of art therapists. So I'm thinking to go that route as well, just to get it out there, and even to have like a Q&A on Zoom. It's low budget short film, but I also want to start at the end of the year on the second one, which is treatment, and then the third is advocacy. So I'm not going to, it doesn't really cost, obviously, like a lot of money, but I do need to, it's all self-funded. So at one point I need to raise money especially for the second one, but.
Great. Fantastic. That's a really interesting project. Very nice. Who else? I can only see a few people. Shalisa, what are your goals? Shalisha.
Yeah, Shalisha.
Shalisha, nice, wonderful name.
Thank you.
What are your goals?
So right now I'm currently working on a pilot episode for a series that I'm writing and producing with some friends. And my goals are to get it financed, and then to fully produce it, and then to get it distributed. But we're trying to go the non-investor route and trying to do it crowdfunded, so that we don't have to go further into debt in order to make it. Because most of me and my friends were all college students, so most of us are already trying to pay off student loans and stuff.
That's great. And where are you, Shalisha?
I'm currently in Colorado, but I go to school in California.
Oh, okay. Which school?
I go to Biola University.
Where's that?
It's in La Mirada.
Right. Okay.
Kind of, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so all of these are great ideas, and there were lots of different things. Ed's one is very, very unusual. Well, I want to get this music. Oh, Joe, what are your goals for your film? Oops, sorry, I just muted you. Go ahead.
What? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I remember last time I was on a Zoom with your group, my thing, I was muted. It was like really frustrating. I'm glad it's working. I just want to get it made. I've been trying for 2 years now. It's been 2 years since I wrote this most recent script. I love my script. I think it's great, but the best response I got was from some producer who I went to film school with. He's an independent producer now. but he said he complimented it greatly, all this great stuff you want to hear, and then there was the second paragraph, which was the inevitable. Oh, but it's outside of my wheelhouse. I only do like studio stuff and streaming stuff, and that's I've gotten a couple other professional type of responses like that. It's amazing, and the people who are just unqualifiedly appreciating the script, they don't have any.
Well, your goal is just to get it made. Is that your goal?
Well, the first step. The distribution. We don't. I'm very aware of the kind of world we're living in now, which is that things that get wide distribution, they're not films for adults. They're kind of tentpole comic book superhero movies, and anything else is going to get marginalized distribution. That's just.
What is your goal? What is your goal that you have?
Any way that this current environment will allow it to get its little head out there, which is not going to be, like mainstream distribution because of the way the world and the tastes of the people are now. I know that. So there's little nooks and crannies, I guess, of this.
Right. But it's interesting, Joe. What you're telling me is what's not going to happen. I'm asking you what you want to happen. What's your vision? What's your goal? It's to get distribution.
Well, my natural unimpeded vision was to have a big distribution so as many people could see it as possible. What I'm trying to say is
that's right.
Not the world we live in now.
Wait. Let's just stop there. Let's just stop with your goal is to get distribution.
I'm just being realistic. It's not the world we live in now.
Okay.
It's very.
I'm going to mute you because I'm going to keep on going. Okay. All right. So what does it mean, though, to get distribution? And I think that a number of people have said different things. And getting distribution means finding an audience for your film. And so, Alina has a project where she's actually very clear about who her audience is, much more than everybody else. And it's interesting because documentaries often have this advantage. In a way, we're all talking about similar projects, perhaps in budget and size, but Alina's market is very clear to her who that market is, and she already told us. It's people who have breast cancer, people who have survived breast cancer, people who caretake people with breast cancer, what she's doing is she's naming a market. When we have fiction filmmakers, they tend to not talk like that. They tend to not say, well, what I want to do is get my audience to a market, and I feel as though this is really the first step and the first thing to be thinking about. If I'm a filmmaker, I'm going to make a film, and then I want to get that to a market. I want to get people to watch that film. I saw Brandon put in there that he's working with a theatrical distributor that specializes in horror films. Oh, okay, it's going to be it is a horror film, so it's going to be distributed to horror fans. So I think that one of the things is that when filmmakers are making their films, that what I would like them to think about is who is my audience for my film, and that's where we start to sort of step into what is distribution about, So again, back to a bit about me. In the past, I used to run a cinema, and we were an independent one-screen art house, and my job was to book films that would sell tickets, so that I could pay the staff, pay the bills, and keep the cinema open 364 days a year, which is what we were open. And so the films that I chose had to be able to pay the bills. And so I kind of I've come from this experience where I see a very direct connection between the film and selling the ticket. And I think that most filmmakers are not really seeing it that way until maybe, as Brandon experienced, until after they've made the film, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, how do I make that connection between this film and that person who's paying a ticket, So I hear every day, I hear people saying, well, distribution is so different now, and everything's changing, and it's different every day, and it is. I don't want to pretend it's not. But in the end, there's still a connection between a film and getting an audience to watch the film, and getting an audience to pay to watch the film. And so distribution is going to look like whatever that connection is to be made from the film, which in the industry is thought of as a product. I think for filmmakers, that's a very hard thing to think about, because they're like, this has got my soul and my heart and my passion and my blood, sweat, and tears in this. And the industry is like, this is a product. And then the distribution of the product is getting that product to the audience member that's going to pay for it. So if I went into the pencil making business, I'd need to know how I was going to make my pencil. And then I would need to know how I'm going to do distribution of my pencil. Am I going to sell it through mom and pop stores? Am I going to get a contract with Walmart? Well, if I make a contract with Walmart, now I've already, I'm a millionaire kind of thing, right? But if I'm in the pencil business, my product has to get distributed to the people who are willing to buy that pencil. So when I was running a theater, this was exactly what I had to think about. If I pick this movie, are my audience members going to come to see this movie? If I pick this movie, is this movie right for my audience, or is it better for the cinema up the road that has a different audience? So when you're making your film, especially if you're a fiction filmmaker, I want you to start thinking about, who is my audience? And then it's going to be our job as filmmakers to start doing the work to reach that audience. I was talking to a filmmaker yesterday, and I know what it is. Yes, so I got a short film that a filmmaker, a client of mine, sent me that she had finished. She did a great job, and there are some very clear things about who the audience is for that film. But she's also working on a feature film, and I said, well, as you are putting the word out, when your short film gets into a film festival, when it gets an award, or all the different things that happen to it, as you're marketing that, also add in marketing your feature film that she's going to be shooting by the end of the year. So now she's going to be building the audience through the short, and then building the audience for the feature on top of that, so that she can be building her own audience. And I think a lot of times filmmakers miss that opportunity because they're thinking, oh, the distributor's going to do the marketing. But the filmmaker, Brandon's like, look, the filmmaker is going to ideally do as much marketing as they possibly can towards building that audience for their films. So I'm really glad that we have a mixture of fiction and documentary filmmakers, because that's a nice range, and the vehicles for distribution may look the same, may look different, but in the end, it's still going to be, what is the journey for this film to get to this paying audience members? How are we going to make that connection between this film and this audience member that's going to pay to see it? So I love the fact that everybody had all these different goals. I noticed, for example, Shalisa talked about getting the film financed, getting it using crowdfunding and raising money from friends and family. Alina was talking about, named, her audience. Brandon has his film coming out on a number of streaming platforms, so people can watch it by streaming. And all these different goals, I would say, are in order to get this product, this film, into this audience's hand. So what really is distribution? As I said, if I am making pencils, then I'm going to have to start thinking about distribution if I want to sell my pencils. And it's the same thing with a film. One very interesting difference between a pencil and a film is that I can only sell this pencil once. But I can sell a film over and over and over and over again. It's a very, very special product that is not the same as something like this pencil, which I can only sell to one person one time. So one of the things to think about with distribution is that you can make money on a film over and over and over and over again. And that's a key to distribution. So I think that what I would like to do is just to sort of break down some of the parts of distribution, which are the different windows, is what they're referred to in the industry, the different windows that usually a film goes through that make money for the film. Does anybody know how you can find out how much a film makes? Does anybody know how to do the research to find out how much a film actually makes? Kay, you're cheating. Kay put the answer. Kay put the answer. Anybody have any idea? Anthony, what's your idea as to how to find out how much a film has made?
Yeah, IMDb Pro, and I've used the numbers a lot.
The
numbers.com.
And
Wikipedia.
when you do that research on IMDb or the numbers.com, what are you able to find out about a film?
I feel like it's fairly straightforward to get the theatrical numbers, but in this new era where so many videos or movies go straight to streaming, it's really, really, really hard to get any sales information on streaming revenues.
Okay, you were talking about IMDb, so what is it when you try to work out how much a film has made? What kind of research do you do, and what are you able to find?
I think a couple years ago we were able to find a little bit more because so much Anthony mentioned was tied to theatrical. Now I'm finding less on IMDb and often not finding out nearly as much as I'd like. I think it's pretty hard. I mean, it seems like it's pretty hard. So if anybody has any better recommendations, the numbers I've definitely looked at, and then there are some. Was it Film Collaborative maybe that was posting case studies, like different case studies, maybe through SF Film. I think I saw where you can, you're not going to get it for every movie, but you could get. Certain films that would, that the filmmakers would disclose like what they got. So more case study than actual research, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. The Sundance also in the last few years has been giving out $25,000 distribution grants. And part of the requirement if you accept a $25,000 distribution grant from Sundance, is that you reveal your numbers. And so it's a way to do a case study of a film and show what the film has actually made, which is very, very, very difficult, as everybody is saying, to find out. So we put some things in the chat where you can do research and you can find out what films have made. What you will find, however, is what they have made in their theatrical releases. So, as I was telling you, I used to run a cinema. It's what's called a first-run cinema. And a first-run cinema is a cinema that shows films when they first come out, as opposed to repertory cinemas that may show films later. But anyway, we showed films when they first came out, so the reviews would come out in the newspapers. We often tended to book films that would end up getting 4-star reviews in the New York Times, for example. So we would show a film. I would book a film. It would get a 4-star review in the New York Times, and people would come from all over to our cinema because they were able to see that film that had a 4-star review in the New York Times at my cinema. And what happened was the film would open on a Friday, and I had to turn in the numbers for what tickets were sold on the Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. I had to turn those in on Monday. And then any newspaper in the country and the world nowadays, you open the newspaper and it'll tell you how much the latest Jurassic Park made this weekend. That's because all the cinemas that showed Jurassic Park this weekend had to call in, or maybe we don't do it by phone anymore, had to turn in their numbers, and they had to say, we sold X number of tickets at X number of dollars, and then all of that comes together, and nowadays it's a common thing that everybody knows that they can see the big box office numbers of the major movies, and it's kind of a news story. Oh, did Batman beat out, this one, or did some low budget indie hit, some $25 million hit beat out some multi-million dollar blockbuster, that kind of thing. People think of that as being average news, right? So what we're talking about here is theatrical. And so all of the theaters are cooperating and collaborating to turn in their numbers so that the general public can be told how much this film has made over the weekend and then over the week. So we would report twice. We would report Monday mornings, and then we would report on Fridays with our Monday to Thursday numbers. So there's a system that has been in place now for, 100 years, where there's box office reporting on theatrical ticket sales. And so if you look up a big budget movie, maybe somebody could look one up and we could just look at it. If you look up a big budget movie, you can find out how much it made in the theaters. Does anybody have a number that they would like to share of a big budget movie and its theatrical earnings? Does anyone have one that they can look up quick?
I was just Googling. I surprisingly recently loved the new Top Gun Maverick. Kay is probably in the other room laughing. This Forbes article says that it might pass $1 billion. So I'm assuming that's like worldwide. Let's see. Overall, this was from yesterday. It says 393 million 17-day total.
Okay, and I just looked it up. Oh no, Jurassic. I looked up Top Gun Maverick, and it told me all top stories about Jurassic World 3. So that's interesting. So Jurassic World 3 had a $145 million And of course, these are normal news stories, and today they're even more significant because the theaters have been closed so long for COVID. We've even lost some chains. We've lost some theater chains for COVID, and so these big numbers that are coming from Top Gun and from Jurassic Park are really heartening to see the theater business coming back. So, if we were opening a small movie that opened in maybe 4 cinemas, and we looked at those numbers, it could say something like $40,000 or $100,000 or those kind of numbers. If you have a small budget movie that opens in 4 movie theaters, 40 movie theaters, something like that, that would be considered a nice theatrical opening for a small movie. The numbers, though, are only about theatrical, and theatrical is what's considered the first window. Having a problem knowing how much Top Gun made has to do with getting our films made. I'm talking about how we derive those numbers. And as I said, it's important to know that the theaters actually turn in those numbers. So if you have a small film, the theaters turn in those numbers. When the film goes to its second window, however, there is no system whereby those numbers are reported in a general sense. So as soon as we go past the theatrical window, there's no system of collecting those numbers. So does anybody know what the second window is? What's the next stage that a film goes into to make money? What's the second window?
It's the digital, the rental.
Do you mean streaming?
Streaming, yeah.
Streaming, okay. All right. So the digital window, as you're calling it, Brandon, is actually several windows. So the first window, I used to have a friend I have a friend, she used to write for Variety, and her specialization that she wrote for Variety was Mexican pay TV. So that was her specialization. Pay TV in Mexico. So that second window is pay TV. And so I have, I have for my TV? It's one of them, I don't know, Comcast or something like that. So you can rent a movie on Comcast, you can rent a movie and watch it and pay on top of your television cable channel and that kind of thing. So that's the second window. And then you can rent the movie on places like iTunes and YouTube. I used to work for YouTube, and you can still, to this day, you can rent every movie that there is on YouTube, but most people are not even aware of that. But you can go and pay $3.99 or $25.99 or whatever they want to charge for a movie you can see every movie on YouTube. This window is called TVOD. TVOD. And it stands for Transactional Video on Demand. So it's where you actually hand over your credit card or something to pay for that movie. And that is the second window after theatrical. But there's really no reporting anywhere on that income from that movie. Of course, during COVID, theatrical was eliminated, and so the first money that a movie made was transactional video on demand. What's the next window after transactional video on demand? Anybody know? Kay.
Subscription VOD?
Subscription VOD. So what's an example of subscription VOD?
HBO, Netflix, AMC, all those?
I just got AMC this week because they have a show on from a novel that I really want to see. So I just got my AMC subscription. So I'll find out what else AMC has. But so SVOD, which is the next window, stands for subscription video on demand, where you pay a fee on a monthly basis and you get content for that monthly fee. So now we've taken our film, right? This is our movie. We sold it theatrically. Then we sold it to transactional video on demand. Then we sold it to subscription video on demand. When Top Gun comes to Netflix, how much is Netflix going to pay Top Gun for that movie? Okay, that's the right. Brandon's going because nobody knows. Nobody knows how much Netflix pays for movies. Netflix is.
You know the general trend for independent films on Netflix, though.
What is the general trend for independent films on Netflix?
The general trend is, like, say, for instance, if they wanted to purchase Turbo Cola from me, they would offer me pennies on the dollar for what it costs to make the movie.
How much would they offer you?
They would probably offer about $10,000 to $20,000, and then they would say, "Yeah, we own your movie for the rest of eternity."
Yes, yes. They're also famous for contracts that say what we want: worldwide rights.
Yeah.
And then I don't know that Netflix does this, but there are definitely distributors that like to have the phrase "in perpetuity" on their contracts.
Yeah.
So, but Netflix is famous for not sharing any numbers about how much they pay for movies, and so a lot of times I hear filmmakers say, "I want to have my new movie on Netflix," but what they don't understand is Netflix pays very low. There are other streaming services that pay more money than Netflix does, and you know, HBO, for example, pays more money than Netflix does. So filmmakers are not really thinking about, again, what that connection is between the film and the audience that they want to have. So it may very well be that the film that they made has more akin with BET, for example, or it might be more appropriate for Lifetime. So all of these different streaming services have their own audiences, and their own audiences may be more appropriate for your film than another. So what's the next window after SVOD? I can always call on my clients because they know the answer to these questions. What's the next window after SVOD? Go ahead, Kay.
Would that be AVOD, advertising, video on demand?
Yeah, and what would be some examples of AVOD?
Is Tubi or
Tubi?
Maybe some YouTube. I don't know that many, actually. I'm not sure.
Pluto was the first one that I really ever noticed, was Pluto TV, and I happened to have a client who worked for Pluto, and that was the first one that I really noticed. And Tubi has really gained a lot in popularity recently, and I just found out that Tubi is owned by Fox, which I didn't realize that. And apparently Fox sold all its collection to Warner Brothers, I think. No, to Disney. Fox sold all its collection to Disney. So now there's a streaming platform called Disney Plus, right? And so Fox had no content anymore, and they bought up Tubi, which was just showing anything. And so they put they invested a lot of money into Tubi, and I to this day really think that Tubi has the best algorithm, is a term we often talk about with streaming services, whereby in comparison to the other channels that I might prefer, like HBO Max or Apple TV Plus, I find that Tubi's algorithm is much more efficient. So the first time I ever looked at Tubi, it was because I was looking at a friend's horror film, and Tubi just constantly delivers me more horror films. So it says, oh, this is what Joanne likes, let me deliver more content. And so the other subscription channels do that. Netflix does it, but I find that Netflix will deliver what's the top thing on their list rather than necessarily what I like, whereas Tubi is very good at delivering what I like, and the more that I watch, the more it delivers me what I like, and it's just constant. What's happening is that independent filmmakers who are making micro-budget films are really making money on Tubi and other AVOD subscription services. And as I said, now we're at like 4 windows down, right? Theatrical, TVOD, SVOD, AVOD. And so often we can use Brandon's film as an example. Brandon's film, he said, oh, it's coming out on all the streamers tomorrow. It's actually not. It's coming out in one of those windows first. So it may come out in TVOD first, it may come out in SVOD first, but eventually it will get to AVOD. And with a lot of very small budget films, that's actually where it's going to make its money. And filmmakers who have been somewhat shut out of distribution in the past, black filmmakers, for example, LGBT filmmakers, are really finding their audiences in the AVOD world, because those markets have been starved for content and are not being provided with sufficient content from the big streamers. I noticed years ago, I was like, wait, Amazon has a much better LGBT selection than Netflix, for example. And now there are platforms that purely provide LGBT content, because there are people who've realized, but wait a minute, this audience is not being served. Let's serve them, So filmmakers today are really benefiting from filmmakers who've maybe, a lot of another problem with the goal of having my film on Netflix is, I always like to say, and who do you know at Netflix? So who do you know at Netflix, and how are you going to open the door to sell your film at Netflix? But there are other streaming channels that are interested in your content and are interested in getting your film to an audience. So the thing that I would say is that once we left theatrical, there are no numbers that you're going to find, except if you can find that case study for a film by a filmmaker who is willing to reveal their numbers, just because they want those numbers revealed. But it's very, very rare that you ever find those numbers. Whenever I find the numbers for a small budget film where a filmmaker has actually, gone on record and said how much they've made and how much they've made in all the windows, to me it's like a gold mine, because there's so few films like that. One film that was made is the film Krisha. And Krisha, Krisha, was made for $30,000. And I never remember the filmmaker's name. He has 3 names. Edward Trey, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he cast his whole family in this film, including his aunt, whose name is Krisha. And he cast 2 actors. They weren't name actors, but he paid for 2 professional actors. Otherwise, everybody who was in the film was his family member. And Krisha was made for $30,000. If you look up what it made theatrically, it says 140,000 in theatrical. So it got a small theatrical release. It was on a few. Thank you, Jose. Trey Edward Schultz. I can never remember his name. And it got a small theatrical release. And I noticed that it just came out of SVOD. No, it just came out of TVOD and went on to SVOD very, very recently. So I just looked it up on IMDb. You can now watch it on Showtime. So it's on a premium. It's on a premium streaming channel. The film was made in what year was it made? 2015. So from 2015, when it made its $140,000 in theatrical, to 2022, it still only moved from TVOD to SVOD, and even then, it's a premium subscription channel. So that film that was made for $30,000 is still making money today, and it still hasn't finished going through all its windows. And that film is a film I would call an anomaly. It's a film I would call a unicorn. It's not the average film. And if you want to try making a film for $30,000 and having it picked up by A24, more power to you. You know, but that is what happened to that film. That is what happened to Krisha. It got picked up by A24. But what I'm saying is that it's still making money. I couldn't tell you how much, though. There's no way, unless Trey actually keeps talking about how much his film makes, and he's on to other things now. You know, he's on to making other films and no longer talking about Krisha, and probably doesn't notice when the check arrives. But that film is still making money. So our films, you know, I think it's very important when you're thinking about your first feature film, which a lot of people here were talking about their first feature film. I think it's really great if you can get distribution, and most likely what's going to happen is it's going to appear either in TVOD or SVOD and then go to AVOD, and that's probably where it's going to make its money, is when it gets to AVOD. The way that films make money, and when you actually learn how to do the research and find out how much they're making, you're actually only seeing theatrical. You're only seeing that first window. So one of the things that I teach my clients is, as they're looking for investors in their films and they want to be able to show how much other films are making, that's a very, very tricky thing to do, because you can show theatrical, but you can't show anything else. And so we have to learn how to be able to explain how films make money without necessarily having the numbers to be able to show. And as I said, if you get to find out the numbers of a film, particularly if you have friends, or we can all keep in touch with Brandon, right? You know, we'll keep in touch with Brandon and see how his film does over the next 5 years. And ideally, he'll keep telling us the numbers. And then we'll have a film that we can give as an example, right? Because without that, we would never know. Without those filmmakers who occasionally go out there and give the numbers, we will never know how much films make. What I think is really important to know, though, is that it keeps making money. It keeps making money. Now, does anybody know of any other ways in this is I'm describing really traditional distribution. Does anybody know of any other ways that are still within traditional distribution that films can make money? Does anybody know of any other ways?
Would you consider public television and educational TV?
That is a great point, Alina, and that's a completely different distribution model. So it doesn't go through all those windows the same way as we're talking about. With public television, usually a film starts in public television. It doesn't earn money from public television, but it can earn money from sponsorship and other ways of making money. But technically, it's let's say PBS would fit into the AVOD. I guess it's really AVOD. If we were trying to put it into those different windows, it's technically AVOD, because although there is no advertising on public television, there is sponsorship, which is the equivalent of advertising. Tony, did you have
airplanes and showing and places like that used to be considered a distribution model. I don't know if it still is.
Yes. So airplanes is really great, and that comes under something that's called ancillary rights. And what ancillary rights are so, you know, we just went through all the different windows from theatrical all the way to AVOD. There are ancillary, meaning extra rights that you can sell your film that don't compete with these windows. So let's say you sign a contract and you sign a contract with a distributor and it goes through all these different windows. You could also sell your film to British Airways and be making money from British Airways with your film, and there's no competition with the rights that I just talked about. Ancillary rights are rights that don't actually interfere with those windows. So again, when I go back to my pencil that I could only sell to one person, right? I've taken my film, I've sold it theatrically, I've sold it on TVOD, I've sold it on SVOD, I've sold it on AVOD. Now I've sold it somewhere else, airplanes. Where else could I sell it?
I wanted to ask too, like if I go to my library website, it will also allow me to watch movies or listen to music there. I don't know what sort of rights those would be considered.
Could you give me an example of a movie that you
Sure. I saw a documentary about the making of Hamilton, and I got that through my library subscription, my library membership. And I watched it on their application.
Yes. Libraries is another whole different set of distribution. And so that comes under, I think Alina mentioned it as well, library, educational distribution. Under that, we have libraries and institutions like universities. So when Alina makes her film about breast cancer, she will be able to have it on PBS, and she will also be able to have an educational distributor distribute that film for her and get it into libraries and get it into universities. And that's another whole completely separate piece of distribution. So you could find a movie at a library. You're not going to find Top Gun at a library, although you will find large movies that are much, much older at a library. But with documentaries or anything that comes under the umbrella of educational, they will also get distribution there. And that's, again, a completely separate window. So we've been able to sell our film, theatrical, TVOD, SVOD, AVOD, separately with ancillary rights, We can sell it in educational rights. Where else can we sell it? There's one more that we haven't mentioned yet. Some of my clients who have already done this should know the answer to this one, Mr. Chris, because you've already done it. Oh, we can't hear you, Chris. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you for some reason. Oh, there you are. There you are. Yeah.
Yeah, to have your own screenings. I mean, your own personal, if you have a niche genre-specific film, like somebody's working on breast cancer, you could have, for breast cancer survivor, something like that, a screening somewhere. And if you do it right, you could earn a little bit. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the one that you missed, which I know that you know about because you already have bought DVDs. So DVDs is
DVDs. Oh, of course, DVDs. Right. Yes, yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Completely separate. So another way that your film makes money is with DVDs. And what's really interesting is that the DVD market, if you read the trades, there is no DVD market left anymore, but there is actually money to be made in the DVD market, and people are still buying DVDs both in person and online through Best Buy, Walmart, Redbox, a variety of different places that people can buy DVDs. So these are other places. So in a way, I always think of distribution as being this kind of linear thing, which is the, from theatrical all the way through to AVOD. But actually it's more like a kind of pie, where there's all those windows, there's ancillary rights, there's education, there's DVDs, and then, as Chris was just talking about, you can have your own screenings and you can make your own money that way. So there are other ways of getting your film in front of audiences. One very big way that's really important is self-distribution, where you get your film out there yourself, and that could involve having some of these windows. Brandon was just talking about getting theatrical himself, but you can also be showing your film to specialized audiences, and this is something very, very common for documentary filmmakers. But if you have made a film that's a fiction film, but it has a particular theme, I'm thinking about something like maybe Coda, that won big at Sundance. Was that this year? No, last year. Was 2021, which is about a deaf family. So that's a fiction film, but it has a very specific audience of the deaf world, or the people who are disabled, or have interests in that particular subject matter and theme. And there are other ways that you can make money by showing a film like that at conferences, at Alina could put together a tour around the country, going around organizations, that maybe a tour of hospitals or a tour of institutions that deal with breast cancer. I have a client who is in England, and she's making a film about the impact of toxic racism and sexism in the corporate world. And she is just about going into post-production with her first feature film, so it's not finished. And she just signed a contract for $44,000 to show the film at a corporation and talk to them about the topics covered in the film. So these are other ways of getting what I would call distribution for your film, but it's a specialized way of getting a film in front of the audience that really needs to see it. So if your film is something that deals with a particular social issue or a particular audience or a particular, like in this case, is a particular illness, you know, I mean, some of the most huge money-making films, I get really tired when I hear people say documentaries don't make money, because some of the hugest money-making films in the last few years have been documentaries about food. I don't know if you've noticed that, you know, Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. Now I can't remember any of the other names, you know, but all these films that deal with eating more healthy food have been massively popular, you know. There was a film that came out many years ago now. It may be as much as 10 years ago now. Oh, Super Size Me, yes. Thank you, Brandon. Called Bully. And Bully is a film that looks at bullying in middle school in America. I would say that it was the first film that really looked at that topic, a topic which I'm afraid all of us now in America are very, very, very familiar with. And but it was new when it came out. But all these years later, you know, 10 years later or more, there's a staff of 3 full-time people whose job it is to get that movie into middle schools. That film is still employing staff who are getting that film in front of the audiences who need to see it, who are basically middle school teachers, middle school kids, and administrators who are trying to take care of middle school kids, you know. So Bully is an example of a documentary that is still to this day making money by doing a great job of getting it to its audience, right? That's, again, this is what distribution is. It's about getting a film to its audience. Now the all I've talked about so far, I think everybody here is in America. Is anybody here today not in America? Anybody on the call not in America? Anthony, you're in America. Oh yes. Okay. What did you want to say, Anthony?
So when talking about DVDs and Blu-rays, I'm actually planning that definitely for my movie because it's, you know, a movie about a drag superhero. Sure. Simon is a Cheyenne barista and he finds a magic wig that turns him into the titular drag superhero, Maxie Lowell. And I definitely plan on having like a booth at Pride festivals and so on and selling those DVDs and Blu-rays. And I was wondering, you know, because the numbers and IMDb don't seem to have much information on DVD and Blu-ray sales, how do you know, have you found any reliable sources on sales data?
No. That's what I'm saying. You cannot, it doesn't exist, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't exist. And the only places that you can find it is if a filmmaker chooses to share those numbers. So it's such a rare thing so I would suggest for you that you look up the Sundance case studies. There are maybe 5 that I know of that they've done so far. So if you just Google Sundance distribution grant case study, something like that, they should come up. The first one, or not, I don't know if it was the first one, but anyway, Thunder Road was was a fiction film that they did. One was a documentary, something about architecture or something, but there are several of those case studies. But basically, you know, unless a filmmaker chooses to reveal this, you're not going to find these numbers. So the good news about that is that is once you know the concept, once you know that the money is being made, then you can to some extent be able to figure out how you will do it. Also, in your case, when your film comes out, and DVDs and Blu-rays will be a really useful thing, because people will want to collect your film. It's got, a very special appeal to it. So collectibles are also going to be something of interest for you. But ideally, your distributor will handle all that, and you won't have to be going and buying DVDs and so on. You'll have them sort of ordered on demand, so that as the orders come in, the DVD gets made and gets sent out. That's usually how it's handled now. So international distribution, all I've talked about so far is the money that this film is making in America. And internationally, there is another whole world out there. Woo, there's another whole world. Woo. So one of the things when you're thinking about your film, Brandon had a goal of his next film to get some name talent. So if you are able to raise enough money to have name talent in your film, then thanks, Anthony. Yeah, Thunder Road, which actually came from a short film that was produced by one of my clients. The short got into Sundance, won the grand jury prize for a short, and then went on to become a feature film. Unfortunately, the feature film was not as good as the short. The short you can see on Vimeo for free, and I think it's a great example to watch of a really, really well-made short. It was made for, I think, $11,000 and won the grand jury prize. So whenever any of my clients want to raise more money to make their short, I'm like, why? Because if you can win a grand jury prize with $11,000, then I want you to argue as to why you have to spend more money than that. So anyway, so outside of America, there is a whole world out there. And ideally, if you are getting distribution for your film in America, you will also get an international sales agent that will handle the sales for outside of America. And so the rest of the world is divided into regions, and some of those regions are like, what's a good region? Spain is a region. So if you sell your film to Spain, then it gets distributed in Spain, but you have to sell it somewhere different to get it distributed in Greece. And then you have to sell it somewhere different to get it distributed in the UK, and somewhere different to get it in Norway. So many countries in Europe particularly are their own region, even if they're just a country. And then there are some markets out there internationally that have become major players when it comes to earning money for films. Does anybody know any regions in the world that are good for sales for independent filmmakers? Does anybody have any thoughts? Brandon?
It also depends on what kind of film you have. American comedies generally don't do as well overseas, but if you have a movie with giant robots, Japan will eat that up.
Giant robots. Okay. So
Japan is a good market.
Yeah, Japan is a very, I mean, that is a big market. So what genre is Turbo Cola again?
Turbo Cola is a comedy drama.
Comedy drama. Okay, so the distributor I work with most likes to say that comedy is culturally specific. So it's much harder to sell comedies overseas than it is to sell horror overseas, because he says, horror, we're all scared of the same things, but we don't laugh at the same things. So horror is not culturally specific. So that's one of the reasons that horror is a good genre to sell, because you don't need to have major names to be able to sell horror. Everybody, all horror fans don't care. They don't need big names in their films to be scared and to enjoy a horror film, whereas comedy, it's more likely that you're going to have a big name to be able to sell it internationally. Yes, Kimberly, the short is also called Thunder Road, and it's thank you, Lexi, you got it already. Yep, Thunder Road. I highly recommend that film. So the difficulty that I see with international sales is that usually when you sell a film and you sign a contract with an international sales agent, they will have a certain number of connections with countries that they are used to doing business with. So maybe they have good connections with 10 countries, maybe 20, but there are a whole lot more countries out there, that they probably don't have good connections with. So that's a little bit tricky with international sales. And again, if you don't have a big name star, and I don't think anybody here in this room has a big name star in their films. I would be very surprised if you did. Oh no, Ed's gone. Ed earlier was saying he had Antonio Banderas in a film, but without those names, it's more difficult to get sales internationally. But again, if you're making a film, for example, a film about breast cancer, there are going to be audiences with breast cancer everywhere in the world, One of the examples that I like to bring up about international distribution is, a couple of examples. So I'm half Trinidadian, and the first time that I ever was involved in selling a film was a film from Trinidad and Tobago, which is, if you don't know, it's an island in the Caribbean. And so we sold the film to a U.S. distributor, and we said, can we keep Trinidad and the Caribbean, because we know better how to sell the film in Trinidad and the Caribbean than you do. And the distributor was literally like, where's Trinidad? Where's the Caribbean? So they had to look it up. And it turned out that the Caribbean is in the same region as the U.S. So anytime you sell a film in the U.S., you are also selling it to the Caribbean. And I would really challenge you to find out if you ever make 2 cents from the Caribbean. Because there is no U.S. distributor who knows the first thing about selling in the Caribbean. I can tell you that for now. So what we did was, the distributor didn't care because they didn't even know where the Caribbean was. And so we signed the contract with them, but we wrote in a clause that said, we will handle the Caribbean. And so we were able to sell the film in the Caribbean and make money in the Caribbean. And there's mostly, filmmakers are not going to know these things, The other big example that I would give is I have a colleague who sells in Africa. And the first time that he ever sold his film in Africa, he wanted to sell a film in Uganda, and it was a Canadian film. So he called up the company and he said, can I sell your film in Uganda? And they said, okay. And they sent him a contract that said Africa. And he said, no. Because he was like, I don't have enough money for Africa. I only have enough money for one country. And they said, he said, no, so I only want Uganda. And they said, well, we're going to give you Africa. He said, no, you don't understand. It's only Uganda. And they said, it's going to be Africa. And that is how he started his business, because he realized there are 38 English-speaking countries in Africa, and no Canadian distributor or any American distributor will have anything in their contract except Africa. To me, this is so insane, I just don't even know how to talk about it. But no distributor knows anything about that market. You know, and so one of the things that I think, especially anybody who has any kind of is an international person themselves, like I am, I'm just generally a global international person, is probably going to have to do some work at some level on the international part of the sales, because the American distributors are not really going to understand that much. They're going to know something, but when it comes to, you know, a massive market like Africa, they're not going to know anything. And there are some other very huge markets today. One, for example, is South Korea, is a massive market. And so that's, you know, the person who knows maybe Spain and Greece and the UK is not necessarily going to know South Korea, and is not necessarily going to know anything about Africa, and is not going to know anything about Thailand or whatever. So once you get to the point where you have a big name in your film, okay, you know, they're going to be able to sell to all these countries. But when you have a small film, you know, if you actually can get sales in 10 countries or 20 countries, I think that would be really great, you know, to start with your first film. So international distribution is another whole world unto itself. It's not something that you could sort of say, oh, I'm going to self-distribute internationally. I don't think that's really something that would work. You probably are going to have to get an international sales agent to do that. But even so, it's a bit, you know, until you get to the point where you can have bigger names in your film. So I've come to my hour and a half, but I do want to stay for a few minutes and see if anybody has questions. I've given you an awful lot of information and probably completely fried your brains. But does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask?
I wanted to know, can you speak about licensing?
Who was that? Who said that?
It's Alina.
Alina, hi. So licensing is the term that's used in these contracts. So, you know, as I said, when I sell a pencil, I sell my one pencil to one person. A film is not like that. So the term that we use is actually licensing. So we license the film to the TVOD company. We license the film to the SVOD company. That's the general term. Okay. Any
and
other?
Another.
Okay, go ahead. Was that Alina? No. Tony, go ahead with your question.
At the moment, I'm almost exclusively looking for international. Any suggestions on where I should start looking to make connections with people?
What is the film that you're...
It's a film about San Francisco. We've chatted a few times in the past. I think it will do well overseas, but I guess I don't know how one even starts going about looking for international sales agents. If even a thought of would be useful.
Yes. Well, so that's interesting. So a film about San Francisco is a film that is already telling me that it's not in a genre that sells internationally, right?
I think, and I really believe this in my heart, nobody else does, maybe I can crack my head on this wall, I think it would have a strong appeal to the tourist market. And there's a lot of tourists that come to San Francisco.
There are a lot of tourists that come to San Francisco. So, but the industry thinks in terms of genre. So when you say I have a film about San Francisco, then the industry is going to say back, what genre is it?
Sure, it's drama, comedy, anthology.
So it's going to run into the same problem that we were talking about with that comedy does not translate internationally. So the reason that if you have a low-budget horror film that sells is because anybody, any country in the world can watch that horror film and be scared by exactly the same things, whether it's an English horror film or a Korean horror film.
Sure. And again, I'm willing to be stupid. I just don't know where to start looking.
Yeah, well, I know how to sell films, and I can sell films, but I would not know how to sell that film.
Okay, fair enough. Right? Thank you very much.
Because of the genre. So, but I don't think that should be the end of the story. I think that you should try and see how you could get somebody interested in your film. So one way would be there's a what's it called? A platform called Cinando, Cinando. And that will, if you join Cinando, you can have access to every single international sales agent in the world and see if you can't get some interest that way.
Okay, thank you very much.
See who might be out there who would be interested in the film.
Thank you.
Is it finished already?
Yes, we are finished. We've run at a few film festivals, etc.
Nice.
And we're happy with it. We think it's a great film, but
excellent. I would love to see it. If you send it to me,
I'll send you a link.
I'll have some more ideas as well.
Okay, thank you, Joanne.
I'm just going by the
Understood.
way the industry thinks, and once you get to a bigger budget and you have names, then you wouldn't say, "Oh, my film is about San Francisco." You would say, "Oh, my film is, has Antonio Banderas," and So it's just the way that the industry thinks.
Sure.
How would we sell that? How would we, find an audience for that?
Great.
Another place I would suggest you go and speak to is the San Francisco tourist. I forget what they're called, but
that makes sense.
Yeah.
The Tourist Bureau, yes.
Tourist Bureau, yeah, and see if they have any ideas as well.
Okay, thank you.
Might be interested. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you, Lexi, for all of your work here. I work one-on-one with clients. I'm a business coach, and I would love to talk to you about working together. I help my clients become fundraisers and to help you raise money, help you get your films produced, but most importantly, get distribution for your films. And so we start out from the perspective that the goal is to get distribution. And so as we were talking at the beginning, people had a lot of different goals, and all of them are valid. But I think that if we can start with the beginning with the end in mind, that we are looking to get distribution and that our goal is to make money with a film, then we can strategically do that in a way so that we spend an appropriate amount of money on a film, and that we are spending an amount of money which we can make back. That seems to me to be the fundamental way to start making a movie. There are any number of strategies around that we can do. We can raise the money beforehand and then make the film. That's my favorite way. Raise the money first, then make the film, And then when you sell it, then that is income that is coming into you instead of other ways that people try to make films, like spending all their savings or those kind of things, you know. So we have a lot of strategies to actually make money from our films instead of losing money making our films. So if you would like to talk to me, hopefully my voice will be in better shape. Please set up a time. And tomorrow, here's my calendar, or Lexi will post it. Here is my calendar so that you can set up a time to talk to me. Tomorrow we are on Clubhouse. That's where I met Brandon originally. We're changing our Tuesday time to 7 p.m. in the evening. That room tends to focus on distribution. So now that you have kind of the foundation of how distribution works, it'll make more sense when you listen in on that. And then I teach this class once a month, and we do that on Mondays. And then every quarter or so, I teach a bigger class. And the last class that I just taught was called 7 Steps to Getting Your Film Funded, Produced, and Distributed Globally. So what I hope is that after this evening, you will all walk away with the concept that getting distribution is the goal for your film, and how to do that and how to plan on doing that before you make your film. And so it's not that, for example, it's not that I would say to Tony, well, don't make your film, but I do think it's important to know before you make your film what is going to be more likely to get distribution and what is going to be less likely to get distribution. So, for example, I have a client now making a drama comedy, and I said, with the distributors that I know, I don't know that I can get distribution for that film, but we're going to raise the money to make the film. So, in the end, whether she makes money off the film or not is not going to be as important, because she's not going to be going into debt to make the film. So whatever film somebody is making, we're going to have a strategy to make sure that they can make money. And as I said, there are lots and lots and lots of ways of making money with your films. So I hope that you all walk away tonight knowing this is the plan. So we're going to make a film that you're passionate about, make a film that you really are proud of, make a film that you want people to see, and do it in a business-like way so that you can also make money on your films. All right? So no more questions? Okay. Good to see everybody. Thanks so much for coming, Anthony. Thanks for coming, Kay. Thanks for coming, Chris. Good to see you all. And please, thank you, Kimberly. Kimberly said she learned a lot. I appreciate that. I hope that you all have at least a basic understanding. The distribution world is on the one hand kind of opaque, but it's not rocket science either. It's the thing that's frustrating is that you really can't find out the numbers. But I look forward to meeting you all. Thank you, Shalisha. And see you next time. See you tomorrow at Clubhouse. Bye. Oh, thank you, Alina. Thank you. Let's talk.